Right, so let's check these answers together. And again, I'm not going to put the answers on the screen this time. I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for you. So you'll have to pay a little bit more attention to what I say. So, number one, he's not independent because he was spoon-fed as a child. That is absolutely fine. There are no problems with this phrase in terms of grammar, nor in terms of context. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. Number two, the knife edge is fun. Not quite correct. As you know, a knife edge is often a dangerous or tense situation. So not usually fun. Perhaps it could be for some people who enjoy those kind of situations, but not traditionally. Okay. Number three, thanks for sugarcoating the story and telling me everything. So that phrase is incorrect, depending on how it's spoken. If it's said with sarcasm, then it would be correct. Thanks for sugarcoating the story and telling me everything. Okay, no, cut that bit. Okay, number three. Thanks for sugarcoating the story and telling me everything. So sugarcoating, do you remember what that means? Sugarcoating, when you don't give all of the details in the story. Yeah, you don't tell the person every single thing that happened, perhaps to avoid hurting their feelings or offending them. So obviously we have the contrary here, because you are thanking them for telling you everything, but that's not the case with sugarcoating. So number three is incorrect. Number four. All our wedding cutlery is silver plated. It's worth a fortune. Silver plated, is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, so if you imagine all of the wedding cutlery, the knives, forks, the spoons, the plates, the dishes, all are silver plated, covered in a layer of silver. That's all correct. Yep. Number five, Godzilla was a herbivore, flesh-eating monster. Not quite. A herbivore is a mammal that eats plants, and Godzilla, as far as I'm aware, did not eat only plants. He was a flesh-eating monster. So number five is incorrect. Number six, this tray could melt given that it's oven-proof. So melt, I'm sure you know what melt is, when an object reaches such a high temperature that it turns from solid into liquid. Obviously, if an object is oven proof, it should be able to resist the high temperatures of an oven. So number six is incorrect. And finally, number seven, you can heat foil wrapped food in the microwave. Well, you can, but I don't recommend you do this because the microwave will explode. So you shouldn't put any aluminium or tin foil into a microwave, as the waves react with the metal, and it causes it to overheat, I believe. So number seven is also incorrect based on the context. Okay, so I hope you got those right, and I hope the collocations have a clear definition for you now and that you know how to use them. Okay, so let's move on to the next activity. So we'll practice some productive skills here. We have 3 questions on the next slide, and you can choose to either make a video like this and you can send us your answers, or you can write your answers and leave them in the group forum. Either are fine. So, in the first question, in some countries, spoon feeding children is part of the culture. Do you agree with this idea or not? Number 2, do you know anyone who you would consider lives on a knife's edge? What do they do that gives you this impression? And finally, how do you feel when people sugarcoat their explanations to you? So I'll give you my personal opinion for each of these, and then you can create your own answers as well. So number 1, spoon feeding children. I really disagree with spoon feeding children. When I was younger, I lived in Italy for a few years, and my mother often tells me that my cousins were spoon-fed as children. So their parents would do absolutely everything for them. When it came to eating, when it came to getting dressed, or came to walking, the parents would do everything for them. And as a result, when they were in their teenage years, up until the late teens, probably 18, 19, 20, they were accustomed to asking their parents for absolutely everything, even something as banal as getting a glass of water. Whereas when I was a young child, when I was eating, for example, I would be left to eat alone, and I would make a big mess. I would get food everywhere, and my mum received a lot of criticism from our family for this. But she said, no, he has to learn, and he will learn by making a mess and getting food everywhere, but he will eventually learn. And I followed this advice. I think it was great advice. So yes, I strongly disagree with spoon feeding children. And I think in today's world especially, children need to be independent from an early age. Not so much independent, but they need to be responsible. I think that's probably the key word. To be responsible, be able to think for themselves, and to understand potential consequences of their actions as well. So number 2, I have a British cousin who is an avid rock climber. He loves rock climbing. He's been doing it for perhaps 6 or 7 years. He often travels to Spain to climb some of the biggest mountains and rocks in Europe. He's shown us some photos of some incredible places that he's been to, but he's been extremely high up, so very high elevation, and he climbs on the sides of rocks and takes photos, sort of looking down at the drop. And for someone who suffers vertigo like myself, I get nervous just thinking about it. So I would say he lives on a knife's edge. Although he has safety equipment to keep him connected to the rock, sometimes these things don't always end well. So I would say he lives on a knife's edge. He essentially risks his life by doing this activity. Okay. And finally, it really depends on what the situation is and who is sugarcoating their explanation to me, and what it's about. If it's sincere and they're genuinely trying to avoid hurting me for any reason, then I can appreciate that and I can understand it. Otherwise, I think one needs to know, even negative situations, what went wrong, why, and so you can confront it and learn from it and grow from it. But I don't really get offended by people if they don't tell me the whole situation. I mean, it really depends. It really depends on each context. But some people feel very strongly about this and demand to be told everything exactly how it is from the beginning. So what are your thoughts? Please post your answers in the forum or send us a video to our social media. If you're happy for us to publish it, we would love to share your stories on our website or our social media channels. Thank you. Right, so the next activity is a listening activity. So we're going to practice an idiom now. You're going to listen to a podcast from the BBC Learning English website. What I would like you to do is listen only to the podcast. Try not to read the transcript, at least the first time. I think if you're taking this course, your English will be quite high anyway, and it won't be necessary for you to read the transcript. So listen the first time, write down what the idiom is, any examples that are provided of its use, and of course write its definition down. Okay, so those are the 3 things that you need to do while you're listening. If you don't get it the first time, you could listen again, or just read the transcript to check your understanding, check the answers, and to look for any new vocabulary that perhaps you haven't heard of before, or perhaps that you don't use very often. So the transcript is always useful to look over, even if you are at a higher level. It's always beneficial. So I hope you enjoy the activity, and I'll be happy to receive any feedback from you. This is a very common idiom that you're going to see. It's an expression really, and I don't want to give too much away at the moment, but it is very common. So it's important that you recognize it and then try to create some examples of your own, or situations when you would use it. Okay, so try to sort of put that into your mind and think about when you would use it personally, because perhaps when those situations occur, it will come to you. Okay, so enjoy the activity, and I'll see you afterwards. Okay, so I hope you've caught the idiom and what it means and how it's used. So I'll just give you a quick example of my own. So when we are thinking of new and exciting activities to do with our school or with our lessons, I'll brainstorm perhaps with my teachers and colleagues, and they may give me a really good idea. And they'll say, okay, that's food for thought. That's something that I should consider. It's something that I can think about. Okay, food for thought. So yeah, a great idea that perhaps you want to think about and develop the idea further. Okay, right. So that's a good introduction to food idioms, which we're going to look into now. So if you can see the next slide, you'll be able to see five images. Some are tastier than others. And then we have the idioms at the bottom of the page. Now you should be able to match the images to the idioms simply based on the ingredients that are mentioned. Now you may not know what they mean, but that's fine. Some of them are able to be translated into your own native language. I'm sure you have something similar. In fact, if you do, please share that with us in the forums. And I'll give you a few minutes, try to match them, and then we'll look at the definitions and how to use them. Welcome back. I hope that activity was okay for you. The idea of the images is to help you memorize the expression, the idiom, by giving you some visual input. Sometimes that helps people who have a more visual memory. Okay, as you can see now on the screen, we have the answers, but the answers are written in phonetic script. So we'll just drill from the phonetics so you can appreciate the pronunciation of the idiom a little bit more. Okay, so the first one is the icing on the cake. The icing on the cake. The next one, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, so perhaps after each time I say the idiom, you can pause the video and just repeat it. Try to listen to exactly how I say the idiom and repeat it exactly. Okay, next one. Your eyes are bigger than your belly. Your eyes are bigger than your belly. Spill the beans. Spill the beans. Bigger fish to fry. Bigger fish to fry. So the pronunciation of the individual words in each idiom is not actually difficult at all. But what you'll notice is when we say them in a phrase, we liaise some of the words. Yeah, we connect some of the words, and we don't pronounce them exactly as they're written. So that's the reason for drilling some of the pronunciation there. So what do these idioms actually mean? Now, as I said before, I'm sure that you'll have something similar in your own language, so you'll probably have a good idea of what they mean anyway. But let's go through them quickly now. The icing on the cake. So the icing on the cake is the final part or the best part to a situation. Yeah. So imagine it's my birthday. I've done lots of things, received lots of great gifts, and then when I think it's all over, at the end, I'm presented with a party, a surprise party, and for me, wow, that's the icing on the cake. It was like the final and the best part of the day. Now I'm sure that exists in your language as well. And there is another one that's similar, which is the cherry on the cake. So very, very similar. The icing on the cake or the cherry on the cake. And the next one, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now this is quite intuitive. The idea being that you should always split or divide your risk. So if you have a basket full of eggs, if for some reason you drop the basket, it's likely that all of the eggs will break. If you've got two separate baskets and your eggs are divided, one may drop and break, but you've still got the other. So the idea is that you split and divide and reduce your risk. Next one, your eyes are bigger than your belly. This is very often used with children, but also with adults as well. So it's when you order more food than you actually need. Perhaps when you're really, really hungry and you just want to eat as much as you can, you order a lot of food, and then it actually turns out you ordered too much. So your eyes were bigger than your belly. So your belly was small, you couldn't put a lot of food in it, but your eyes wanted as much food as possible. That's a nice expression. Then we have bigger fish to fry. I have bigger fish to fry. That means when I have more important things to do. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. I've got bigger fish to fry, more important things or bigger projects to focus on. Okay, I can't dedicate my time to this because it's not effective or efficient for me. And then finally, spill the beans. Spill the beans. So if you imagine that this tin of beans is closed and sealed, nothing can get in or out of the tin. But if the top pops open, all the beans come out, all the contents come out. So we use this to give out information or gossip. Yeah. So if I say to my friend, spill the beans, tell me what happened, is effectively what I'm asking them. Yeah. Tell me what happened. Tell me all the news. So sometimes that can be used in a gossip sense. Okay, so I hope that's clear for you. And if we move on to the next activity, let's look at some of these idioms in action. So I would like you to discuss these situations and try to use the idiom in the scene. So your friend is asking you for financial advice. He wants to buy lots of shares and asks you if it's a good idea. So what would you recommend him? What would you say to him? Okay, so think about which idiom could be used in this situation and then practice the advice that you would give. Okay, it'd be great if you can make a short 20-second, 30-second video practicing these. Please send them to us. That'd be wonderful. The next one is you're in a restaurant and looking at the menu, but you don't know what to choose. Okay, so again, which idiom would be best used in this scenario? There's no one correct answer. You may be able to use more than one. So it's really up to you. Next one, you took an exam which didn't go very well, but you told your parents it did. So explain yourself, explain what happened. Okay, so I look forward to seeing your videos about the idioms. Right, so I will just give you briefly some examples of things that I would say, just to give you some support in your answers, which I hope you're already done by now. So these are my examples. So for the first situation, if my friend came to me for financial advice, then I would tell him, look, be careful, how much do you know about these shares or this company? Is it wise to put to invest all of your money in one company. You know, perhaps you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, split the risk and buy shares from different companies, yeah, from multiple companies. So if one fails, the others are still okay. That's probably what I would advise him. Second, you're in a restaurant, look at the menu and you don't know what to choose. Well, what often happens with me in restaurants is I order too much food. My eyes are always bigger than my belly because I go there when I'm hungry and I want to eat lots of different things, or I want to try different dishes and different flavors. So my eyes are always bigger than my belly. And finally, my exam didn't go well, but I told my parents that it did. Well, eventually I would have to spill the beans and tell them the truth, because sooner or later they will realize that, based on my results, that I hadn't told them the truth. So I probably would spill the beans at some point. Okay, so I hope you've sent us your answers by this point, and I look forward to giving you some feedback. Thanks. Okay, and continuing our work with food-based idioms here, the next slide shows 4 idioms that we haven't covered today, and your task is to get online and search for them. So you've got the image which gives you an indication of what they could be. So perhaps put in a description into Google and see what comes up. See if you can find the idiom that best represents these images and write them to us in the forum. I won't tell you the answers here in the video. I will wait for you to message us, and then I will write the replies to your messages. Okay, so I'll see you in the group forum. Good luck. Okay, so now we're going to look at a reading activity. Okay, so looking at the next slide, you can see a photo of a man holding a dish with some food. So, do you recognize this famous British chef? Britain's probably got 2 or 3 very, very famous chefs at the moment. And this man, his name is Jamie Oliver. He's very, very successful in the UK and Australia. He's got several TV programs. He has lots and lots of restaurants. And he's also involved in a lot of government programs, charity events. He's very, very active. And he likes to go beyond cooking, but also use cooking to help people. So he's quite remarkable, very, very popular. And what I'd like you to do is have a look at his website. We've given you the link there, and you can check out this recipe or another recipe. It doesn't really matter, your choice. But what I'd like you to do is, as you read, make notes on these 3 key aspects, okay? What cooking vocabulary does he use? What are the ingredients? And the methodology. So how does he actually prepare the meal? Okay. Once you finish reading, what I'd like you to do is, you can do this again on your own. You can say it out loud to yourself, practice a few times, and then perhaps record yourself if you wish. Explain just how to make the dish that you've read about. Okay, the idea is that you recycle and use perhaps some of the idioms, the collocations that you've learned in this lesson, and any useful vocabulary that you find in the recipe itself. Okay, so remember, sort of read, reformulate, and reproduce. Okay, so try to follow those steps. And if you'd like to submit your work again in the forum or on the social media, we will love to give you some feedback on that. Okay, so good luck, enjoy it, and if you end up actually making the dish, please invite us for some. Thank you. So that brings us to an end to the lesson on food idioms and collocations today. There are some extra activities and assignments for you to complete, so please find those in the course. And I'll look forward to giving you feedback and answers to that. Well done today, good job, and keep studying hard.